They found her skull shattered, her arms broken in defensive positions, signs of a violent struggle frozen in bone for over 3,000 years. The woman who fought for her life in those final moments wasn't just anyone. She might be the most famous face in ancient history. But here's what's truly terrifying. This brutally murdered woman could be the same person whose face represents perfect beauty in every museum across the world. Queen Nefertiti didn't just disappear from history. Someone wanted her dead, erased, forgotten forever. They almost succeeded, and the reason why will change everything you think you know about ancient Egypt's golden age. For 3,300 years, Queen Nefertiti has been one of ancient Egypt's greatest mysteries. We know her face better than almost any other figure from antiquity, yet we have no idea where she's buried, how she died, or even if she's the person we think she is. But that's about to change. Modern forensic technology, CT scanning, and genetic analysis are now revealing answers that rewrite everything we thought we knew about ancient Egypt's most enigmatic queen. And the truth? It's far more shocking than anyone imagined. The limestone bust, discovered in 1912, shows a woman of ethereal beauty, high cheekbones, an elegant neck, a perfectly symmetrical face that seems almost too flawless to be real. For over a century, this image has defined Nefertiti, making her synonymous with ancient beauty and power. Museums fight over, millions travel to see it. It's become an icon of civilization itself. But here's what nobody tells you. Despite being one of the most recognizable faces in human history, not a single confirmed trace of Nefertiti's actual body has ever been discovered. No tomb, no mummy, no burial chamber. It's as if the moment she died, she simply vanished from existence, or was deliberately made to vanish. The question that has haunted Egyptologists for generations is simple, yet terrifying. How does the wife of a pharaoh, one of the most powerful women in the ancient world, disappear without a trace? Deep in the Valley of the Kings, in an obscure tomb labeled KV-21, archaeologists discovered 2 female mummies. For decades, they sat in storage, anonymous and ignored. Then came the technology that would change everything: advanced DNA sequencing and high-resolution CT scanning. When scientists finally analyzed mummy KV-21b, the results sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. The genetic markers suggested royal lineage. The age was right. The time period matched. But it was the CT scans that revealed the most disturbing evidence. This wasn't a peaceful death. The skeletal remains showed signs of severe cranial trauma, fractures that could only have come from blunt force. There were injuries to the arms, defensive wounds suggesting she tried to protect herself. The positioning of certain bone breaks indicated a violent struggle. This woman didn't die of natural causes or illness. She was murdered. And if this is Nefertiti, it means one of history's most celebrated queens met a brutal, violent end. Someone wanted her dead badly enough to attack her with lethal force. But who? And more importantly, why? To understand what happened, we need to talk about something even more controversial. The theory that Nefertiti didn't just disappear as a queen. She might have disappeared as a pharaoh. Historical records show that after Pharaoh Akhenaten's death, a mysterious ruler named Smenkhare briefly held the throne. No clear male heir, no definitive records, just a name that appears and vanishes within a few years. Some Egyptologists now believe this wasn't a man at all. It was Nefertiti, ruling under a male name because that's what tradition demanded. Think about it. A powerful queen taking the throne in a male-dominated society, challenging every convention, continuing her husband's controversial religious reforms that threatened the wealth and power of the ancient priesthood. She would have had enemies everywhere. The old guard would have seen her as an abomination, a threat to everything they believed in. And then, suddenly, all mention of her disappears from historical records. Her name is chiseled off monuments. Her images are defaced. It's as if someone launched a systematic campaign to erase her from history itself. This wasn't just about removing a queen. This was about eliminating a pharaoh who never should have ruled. But Nefertiti wasn't the only one who disappeared. She had 6 daughters with Akhenaten, 6 princesses, who should have been among the most documented people in Egypt. Yet most of them simply vanish from the historical record without explanation. Meritaten, the eldest, appears in records, then disappears. Meketaten died young, possibly in childbirth, but under suspicious circumstances. Ankhesenaten, later known as Ankhesenamen, married the boy king Tutankhamun, but her fate after his death remains unknown. The 3 youngest daughters? It's as if they never existed after a certain point. What happened to these royal princesses? Were they victims of the same purge that erased their mother? Were they killed, exiled, or forced into obscurity? The pattern is unmistakable. Anyone connected to the Amarna period, anyone tied to Akhenaten and Nefertiti's radical religious transformation, was systematically removed from history. This wasn't accident or oversight. This was intentional destruction, a coordinated effort to wipe an entire royal family from collective memory. Someone wanted to ensure that nothing remained of the Amarna legacy. But DNA analysis has revealed another layer to this tragedy, one that might explain some of the disappearances. The genetic testing of Amarna period mummies shows something disturbing: severe inbreeding that led to catastrophic health problems. The royal family's practice of marrying siblings and close relatives, meant to keep bloodlines pure, instead created a genetic nightmare. CT scans of these mummies reveal bone diseases, immune deficiencies, and developmental disorders that would have caused chronic pain and early death. Some of the royal children might have died not from violence, but from inherited conditions that made survival impossible. Tutankhamun himself, Nefertiti's son-in-law, had a club foot, a cleft palate, and numerous genetic disorders that researchers believe made him a sickly, fragile ruler. If these conditions ran through the family, it could explain why so many of Nefertiti's daughters disappeared. They might not have been murdered. They might have simply been too sick to survive. But this raises an even darker question. Did Nefertiti herself suffer from these genetic problems? And if the perfect face we know from the bust is accurate, how is that possible? Which brings us to the most controversial theory of all. What if the famous bust of Nefertiti isn't actually Nefertiti? What if it's not even meant to be realistic? Art historians have long noted something strange about the bust. It's too perfect, too symmetrical. Ancient Egyptian art, even royal portraiture, showed realistic features, imperfections, humanity. But Nefertiti's bust looks almost like an idealized sculpture, a propaganda piece rather than a portrait. Some researchers now believe this bust was never meant to show what Nefertiti actually looked like. It was a political tool, an idealized image created to project power, divinity, and perfection. The real woman, especially if she suffered from the genetic conditions that plagued her family, might have looked nothing like this. Think about it. If Nefertiti was trying to rule as a pharaoh in a hostile environment, she would need to project an image of divine perfection. The bust wasn't about truth. It was about creating a myth, a facade of flawless beauty to mask the reality of her struggles, her controversies, and ultimately, her violent end. The perfect face was designed to hide the imperfect truth. So what really happened to Nefertiti? We may never know for certain, but the evidence is building a disturbing picture. A powerful woman who dared to break every rule, who possibly ruled as Pharaoh against all tradition, who was ultimately murdered for her ambitions, and then systematically erased from history by those who feared what she represented. The famous bust that made her immortal might be the greatest irony of all. The one thing that survived is likely the one thing that was never real. While the truth of who she was, what she endured, and how she died was buried in an unmarked grave, forgotten and ignored for over 3,000 years. Until now. Modern science is finally giving Nefertiti her voice back, revealing the dark secrets behind that perfect face. And the story it's telling is far more compelling than any myth we've created.